1896, Dr. Philip Nietzsche was the world's first physician to administer a legal, lethal, voluntary injection to end the lives of 4 people. This was when the Australian province, the Northern Territory, for a short period of time had the right to terminally ill acts. It was overturned by the Australian Parliament in 1997. However, since then, Dr. Nietzsche has been travelling the world teaching people how to do it themselves. At the moment he's in the UK and he's causing a lot of controversy.
They're from a different class of drug.
Dr. Nietzsche is the director of Exit International, an organisation advocating for the legalisation of euthanasia and assisted suicide. It's a non-profit NGO.
Part of Exit's program is to make sure that laws do change, put pressure on governments, remind politicians to do what they're paid for, that is legislate for the people, not run away from this issue, which politicians are very good at doing. The workshops are not really about political change, they're about practical strategies, and so we'll go into what available methods, reliable, peaceful, don't fail, you can manage it, but you've got to have information, and that's what we'll be going into.
Philip held his last workshop in Holborn, London yesterday. He has been in the UK for 2 weeks, teaching people how to use drugs and gas to obtain a so-called peaceful death. But of the 5 planned workshops, 2 were cancelled last minute by frightened venues.
And I'm pretty annoyed by that because these are venues that we've had arranged for months and they know what the topic's about. But obviously as it gets closer to the time, they are experiencing pressure. Obviously some people in the community don't want our workshops to persist and they work on trying to control them by putting pressure on the venues, and so we had cancellations both in Belfast and in Eastbourne, and we only just survived in Cardiff.
The offices of the pro-life organisation Care Not Killing lies by St James's Park. Although they were not at the forefront of the pressures put on the venues, the cancellations came as good news.
I think that these workshops play on fear, and it's the fear that if you have a terminal illness or are disabled, your life is somehow not worth living. It's a fear that if you're elderly and go into the care system in this country, you will die a horrible and gut-wrenching death. And actually, in most cases, the opposite is true. We have a palliative system in this country that we should be proud of. We have a hospice movement which is second to none, and I think rather than talking about how we can kill people, we should be talking about how we can improve the levels of care in the system.
Death has religious connotations for many people. To find out more about the Catholic Church's view on Dr. Nietzsche's workshops, I visited the Bioethics Centre, which is where bishops and other Catholic leaders can get moral and ethical questions answered.
I think it's irresponsible. I've known people who have committed suicide. I've known people who have attempted suicide. I've argued with people who are feeling suicidal. I think that encouraging people or saying, if you ever want to do it, here's a bottle of pills you can keep by the bed. I think I'm very strongly opposed to people doing that. I think it's utterly irresponsible.
Actually, not all religious leaders are against Exit International. I met a reverend who supports Dr. Nietzsche and even donates money to him.
The workshops are important because people need to have the information, and generally the information is not available. It's freedom of choice, which is the core of all work. If you put something into the cupboard and keep it in the dark, that is not a way to promote any cause. And actually making it out in the open allows people to have an informed choice, and it doesn't matter what they ultimately choose. And what I like about this workshop, what I saw today, is that it's not a promotional workshop, it's an information workshop. And that's the bottom line for me.
But whether one is religious or not, death seems to be a very sensitive subject and something better swept under the carpet.
I think that the death is a taboo subject, and it has been in many cultures and continues to be so. It is not a dinner party conversation. It is something which we discuss very reluctantly.
Milan is the author of Dr. Nietzsche's most controversial work, The Peaceful Pill Handbook, which is a book that explains about the wide range of drugs and gas and how to buy them. The book is banned in Australia, but not in the UK.
I tend to refer mainly to it occasionally on online version, which is kept up to date. It is a very good reference to what to do and what not to do.
As authors, we acknowledge that there may be a small risk that this book will be misused by people for whom this information is clearly not appropriate. I mean, they acknowledge that. It's irresponsible.
I know people who have attempted suicide and are still alive because they were not very effective. In particular, taking an overdose. Many thousands of people take overdoses, some more seriously than others, or some meaning it and some meaning it less. But often they survive. Most often they survive. It's not the most effective way to try to kill yourself. And the thought that they had access to, oh, if you do it like this, then you would be effective, and they wouldn't be around. I think it's just deeply shocking. I think it shouldn't be available in this country. It is difficult to police these things sometimes, but if the Australians have made it illegal, I think we should look to emulating them.
The information is important for people who want to die. They've got to go to the trouble to get the drugs, and then they will have a peaceful death. So the idea that maybe people will use this information, vulnerable people will be exposed to it, and I think we always make these decisions in society where risks have to be balanced. If most people want something, and some will say, but there's a chance someone might get hurt. We allow people to drive on the roads. Some people will get hurt, but we don't say because someone could have an accident, no one should have a licence. It's a false argument, yet it's used a lot against what we try to do here, which is basically, by information, empower elderly people.
Even though death is an emotional subject, and many venues cancelled because of it, the people at the London seminar seemed happy to have the chance to understand their options.
I came with my mother, who we have had many discussions about the manner of her death, because I think it's more the manner of death rather than the fact of death that for most people is the biggest problem. And it is her manner of death, having witnessed family members dying not very pleasantly, that is the biggest fear that she has. And I sort of, was half jokingly, but meant seriously as well, said I would come with her because I know that the manner of death concerns her, that she needs to know so that she can reassure herself that she can manage it in the way she wants. But I'm aware that she may need some help with that.
I came because I am 80, or will be 80 in a month's time, and I just want to make sure that I don't end up in a hospital unable to do anything for myself. And I have actually given the family instructions that I am not to be taken to a hospital, that I want to stay at home. And I feel sure that I will know when the time is right, and I will do my dying the way I want to do it. Okay?